Scary.
Same way when I went to Ottawa, only it was leaving Halifax. 3 hours late too.
Okay, we're good. Good evening, members of council and staff and those in the gallery of the public and anybody who's watching us. Welcome to, this is the last formal full town council meeting of the 2024 term. So welcome, and we'll start with our land acknowledgement.
Good evening. I would like to acknowledge Wolfville is situated in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq. And as such, ask that we conduct our business with the 7 sacred teachings in mind: truth, honesty, love, courage, respect, wisdom, and humility.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And so I'll call the meeting to order. And before I ask for a motion to approve the agenda, are there any additions that we will be approving to that agenda? CEO? Nothing? Okay. Motion, please, for the approval of the agenda.
Okay, I'll second.
Put it this way. Okay.
Reverse it.
And
Reverse
there are no additions. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? And that's passed. And we have a number of 4 sets of minutes. Deputy Mayor, the public hearing minutes of June 25th.
Unless anybody else wants to go. I would move that we approve the minutes from the public hearing on June 25, 2024.
And the seconder, please.
I'll second that.
Okay, Councillor Butler. And are there any errors or omissions in that? That was the, I believe, the public hearing related to Highland and Gasbro. Good with that? All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's passed. And town council meeting of July 23rd.
I would move that we approve the minutes of the town council meeting of July 23rd, 2024.
Thank you. And a seconder, please. Councillor Madeira Voss, are there any errors or omissions? Hearing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Those are passed. And the in-camera meeting minutes of July 20th.
Thirdly, I would move that we approve the minutes of the town council in-camera meeting of July 23rd, 2024.
Thank you. And a seconder, please.
Second.
Thank you, Councillor Palmer. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That is passed. And another special town council in-camera meeting, July 31st.
I would move that we approve the minutes from the special town council in-camera meeting, July 31st, 2024.
Thank you. And a seconder, please.
Second.
Thank you, Councillor Butler. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Those are passed. All right, that brings us to my comments, and they're, because this is the last meeting, they're a little bit longer. And I wanted to start by thanking council and staff for all of the hard work that has been done over this term. I was thinking back, and I know 3 of you were new councillors, and you had the pleasure of spending the first 18 months of your term. Well, we all did, but particularly hard for new councillors, virtual and in kind of COVID lockdown. I remember the first time that we actually were in this room and we had people, and we had a lot of people in the gallery, was a public hearing. And so that was our trial by fire. And we weren't here very long when we had a flood, and we were off for another 4 to 6 months. So about half of this term has been done virtually. But I was thinking, going through what we have accomplished, and I'm just going to read a list because I think this council accomplished a great deal. We approved the East End Secondary Plan, and development has started. Highland Street has been completed from Skyway North. We received funding and started the active transportation plan. We received funding and started, and obviously council approved the plan, the accelerator plan for housing. and that has started. We have discussed considerably a new library, town hall, and fire hall approved, and site selection is ongoing for the fire hall. And after that is in place, then the council can start to look again at the library and town hall. And this council determined that it would go on this site once the fire hall was gone. We also approved a new policing agreement, and I remember my first council 12 years ago, 2 CAOs ago, we started talking about a new policing agreement. So good on us for finally 12 years later getting that through, or 11 years later, I guess. There is a new and I think a much more robust MOU with Acadia that we approved. As the public hearing noted, significant new housing developments approved at the top of Gasborough and the top of Highland. Finally, the new visitor center is built. That was a project from the last council, and finally it's up and running. There is a new regional plan for King's Transit that was approved, funding received, and buses on order. And before anybody gets too excited, I think it takes 2 to 3 years to build a bus, so it'll be a little while, but I understand that those tenders have gone out. New accessibility plan and a new CAO. Thank you, Councillor Ingham, for steering that project. And a new director of finance. Director Hopkins is online with us. And in our term, also a new director of public works. So we had to break in a lot of new people. And I just wanted to mention 3 community initiatives for which this council was recently a contributor, really important places in our town, Randall House, the Legion, and the Curling Club. So that was a bit of a long list, but I think this council should be very pleased with things that we all accomplished in spite of being on Zoom for 2 years. I'll just mention a couple of other things. This weekend, of course, is Deep Root. I think it's going to be a little rainy on Friday, but it looks good for Saturday for the kids' parade. I understand it starts at 11:30 and there's a road closure. I'm looking for nods from somebody. Yes, okay. And a reminder that next Monday is a holiday. It's National Truth and Reconciliation Day, and there will be a Maui Omi at Clock Park that starts at 8 o'clock in the morning, and Elder Joe from Acadia will be leading that. And I will ask members of council if they'd like to add anything, but the CAO wanted to add something, so I'll do that first.
Yes, just on behalf of, while this might seem a little strange coming from the newest person around the table, on behalf of all staff, I just want to express my sincere thanks to all of you for your leadership and your commitment to your community that you've expressed through this term. Particularly as the mayor said, starting under some difficult circumstances through a couple of years of COVID. These roles are, as you can attest, are not always easy. You've given of yourselves tremendously. You've provided leadership to your community. And for your service, we are very thankful to you. And those of you who have decided to not reoffer, we wish you all the best in whatever comes next. And for those of you who are running, we also wish you all the best as those campaigns begin in earnest. So thank you very much.
Thank you, CAO. Would any member of council like to add something? Councillor Madeira Voss.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Donovan. And I just want to follow up on our CEO's comments, because I believe, well, I know I'm the only person on this council who decided not to reoffer. And so I just want to express my thanks and my pleasure at having worked with each and every one of you. It's been a wonderful time on council. I will definitely miss being on council, but there are sort of other things pulling me away. And so I just wanted to say thank you. And also I'm glad you listed the list that you did, Mayor Donna, because that's something all of us have to be proud of. We all had some very fruitful discussions, sometimes long discussions regarding many of those items. And I always appreciated the very respectful and sincere way everyone shared their opinions and their positions. And I think we should all be very proud of what has gone through. And I think we've got a good record, I think, for everyone to stand on. So this is great. So thank you. And I wish you and the next council all the best.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Ingham.
Thank you, Isabel. It was a pleasure always sitting next to you. I think we took turns around the table.
We did.
So thank you for that. I just wanted to add, in addition to September the 30th, which is Truth and Reconciliation Day, for everybody to come down to Soups and Sides, as we will be featuring the Three Sisters Soups, and we welcome Sandy Lynn Fraser there too. So if everybody can come down to Soups and Sides, it will also be a special day. Thank you.
Thanks. Deputy Mayor, did you want to say something, or your light was?
Oh, sorry. No, I'm
Okay.
just happy
Okay.
for the glow.
Okay, but everybody else good? Thank you. And again, thank you to staff and thank you to council. All right, that brings us to public input. And is there anyone in the audience, or I'll start with the audience, who would like to speak for public input? Yeah, okay, so staff can help you bring the table up if, yeah, staff will help you. So you just give your name and your address, and you have 5 minutes to speak. We can hear you even
Yeah,
without that.
that's right.
Well, no, it's the audience. No, it's the audience online that can't hear you if we don't use our mics.
Okay. Janet Too Loud McLeod. My name's Janet McLeod. I live at 24 Whidden Avenue. I've been a resident of Wolfville since moved in just in time for the pandemic. And, I'm kind of a one issue annoyance. Traffic in Wolfville, there've been pedestrians hit. We need better traffic control and pedestrian control. We need, as far as I'm concerned, a regular traffic light at Gasborough and Main. And that's been discussed, I guess, and friggin' tenders put out ad nauseum for years. And the longer it goes, the more expensive it's gonna be. And, the last time I attended a council meeting, I was aware of 3 pedestrians that had been hit. One at Gasborough and Main, one at Highland, and one in the parade of students coming down the hill from university. And, Berwick has 3 traffic lights. New Minas has 6, Kentville has 4. They don't have a university. They aren't continuation of a highway. And I'm just wondering, what's the big deal? So there's some merchants in that one block that are going to be affected by losing traffic or parking spots. But there's enough free parking around here. If people want to walk from, down by the waterfront park. I mean, it's a 1 block area that is the core of the downtown here. And, trying to come and get my mail, I might as well park at Subway and walk to the post office. Pedestrians don't seem to take responsibility for stopping, looking and listening, before they hit the light and cross the street texting. So, that's kind of my issue. And I know this council is ending, but I will be back until it happens. I'm relentless. I think it's a good idea. I know the town got extra money from the province taking over the maintenance of the highway from exit 10 into, I don't know, where it changes to 50 clicks an hour. So, that money could go towards a traffic light. It doesn't need another study. Maybe it needs a better tender. I don't know. It's not rocket science. They've been putting traffic lights up for a couple hundred years, 100 years anyway. So that's my pitch.
Thank you.
And
Oh,
let me see, I had a question. Oh, being the victim of the compliance officers, what's the population of Wolfville? I don't even know.
That's just about 5,000 permanent, and what did we say, 4?
Why do we need 2 compliance officers? To talk about my dogs barking, and why did 2 of them need to come to one house to tell me someone complained about my dogs barking?
we'll forward that on to compliance. This is public input. It's not a Q&A, but.
Oh, I thought there was a Q&A
No.
when I stopped in this afternoon.
No,
They
it's
said there was.
public input.
Okay,
Okay,
cool.
thank you
Thanks.
so much. Anyone else in the present audience? Laura, are you aware of anybody who might be online?
There's no one online.
Okay, thank you, Laura. All right, that brings us to motions from Committee of the Whole, September 10th, 2024. And the first one, so for those who are watching, the reason at council, not that we can't spend more time discussing them, but they get discussed at length at Committee of the Whole, and so they tend to go faster during council meetings. So if I could have a motion, please, for the initial one, RFD 044, which is the Equity and Anti-Racism Advisory Committee. Councillor Ingham.
I would move that council approve the terms of reference for the Equity and Anti-Racism Advisory Committee as attached to RFD 044-2024.
Thank you. And could I have a
I'll
seconder?
second
Oh,
that.
let's go to Councillor Butler. Thank you. And are there any comments from staff or questions to staff? Or
I'll just-
general comments? Go ahead.
I'll just
CL.
note, Mayor, that the amendment that was discussed by council during the committee of the whole meeting to change the composition, change the membership to a 2-year term for 2 members of council is now included in this updated version.
Okay, good. Thank you. Are there any other points council wishes to ask or comment on? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, that's passed. And then there's a rather long motion. I'm just asking the CAO, should we deal with this as one?
We'll deal with them as well. They came from the committee
came-
as one, so we'll
okay.
deal with them as.
All right, so it's a rather long motion, not as long as sometimes motions are. But would somebody maybe from that committee like to move those motions? Councillor Madeira Voss.
I would move that council approve RFD 045-2024, various policies of council administrative amendments. And do you want me to read each one?
Yes, please. if you
Okay.
would.
The council approved the amendments to policy number 110-004, council conference and professional development policy as outlined in RFD 045-2024.
No, we're doing them. I understand we're doing them all.
All at once. so
All at
we're not
once,
gonna
and then
vote.
we-
Right. The council approved policy number 110-006, council board and commission remuneration policy as attached to RFD 045-2024. The council approved the amendments to policy number 110-003, deputy mayor policy as outlined in RFD 045-2024, with amendments related to the nomination process as discussed. The council approved the amendments to policy 110-001, committees of council policy as outlined in RFD 045-2024, with further amendment to include the terms of reference for the Equity and Anti-Racism Advisory Committee. And the council approved policy 110-007, policymaking and management policy as attached to RFD 045-2024.
Thank you. The seconder, please. Thank you. Councillor McKay, is there any discussion on any of those? No comments?
I'll just add again, Mayor, that these amendments are as seen in the preview at the committee of the whole meeting, with 2 exceptions. One, at the committee's request, a nomination process for deputy mayor has been added. As well, we have added the terms of reference for the Equity and Anti-Racism Committee, for which the terms of reference you've just approved.
Thank you. Councillor Madeira Voss, your light's on or, okay, no other questions? All those in favor then, please indicate by saying aye. Aye, opposed, that's passed. And the next one deals with the travel, meal and miscellaneous allowance policy amendments. Would someone like to move that? Councillor Butler?
I move that council approve the amended policy number 120-008, travel, meal, and miscellaneous allowance policy as attached to RFD 047-2024.
Thank you. And a seconder, please. Deputy Mayor Elliott, and are there any questions or comments on that? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That's also passed. And council remuneration policy. Somebody like to move that? Councillor Butler?
I can.
You were gonna,
I was adjusting my mouse, but I can also speak. I move that council approve the amendments to policy 110-005, council remuneration policy review as outlined in RFD 046-2024.
thank you. And a seconder, please. Thank you, Councillor Madeira Voss. Any additions or comments on that? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That's passed. And grants to organizations policy. A mover and a seconder, please. A mover? Councillor McKay?
I would move that council approve the amended policy number 710-003, grants to organizations policy as attached to RFD 048-2024.
Thank you. And a seconder, please. Councillor Ingham? Any comments or questions on that? Councillor Palmer?
I can't get my thing open here because it's doing an upgrade, but I'm not sure if it referenced uncommon common art in there or not, but I just want to point out uncommon common art doesn't exist anymore. So it should be removed. Yeah, sadly, it should be removed.
I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that for this review, we only looked at the capital grant section. That was in the operating grant section. So we are doing, staff are looking at the operating grant section as well. So we'll clean that up next time.
So I'll just point out that uncommon common art ceased to exist 4 years ago.
Thank you. All right, any other comments? Then all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That's passed. The next motion is a request related to basic income guarantee that was brought to us by a resident. Mr. Tadlock is in the audience with us. I understand, I wasn't sure if he was going to speak to this, but I understand no. I wonder if we have a councillor.
You
Deputy
do,
Mayor,
you
who would
do.
like to move this? Thank you.
I would very much like to move this. RFD 050-2024, a request for motion on the basic income guarantee. So whereas a basic income guarantee, the BIG, is an unconditional cash transfer from government to all adults who earn less than a predetermined minimum income. Whereas 16 Nova Scotia municipalities have passed a motion in council asking our provincial and/or federal government to implement or determine the viability of a BIG representing 78% of the population of Nova Scotia. Be it resolved that the town of Wolfville requests that the NSFM advocate that the Nova Scotia legislature establish an all-party committee to examine a basic income guarantee program for Nova Scotia.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And do I have a seconder? Okay, Councillor Madeira Voss. Are there any comments or questions about this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That's also passed. That moves us to new business and the community oven expansion opportunity. I think Director Lake and maybe Duncan Abada are going to do a presentation. Yeah, have I got that right? Oh.
Presentation is very short, but I can tell it's something about Duncan, you could come up here. I just want to make sure that I'm doing this right. So That didn't work. Trevor, do I have to change the sharing? It should be good.
Devin, we can't see it. You have to share it on the screen.
Okay.
That's it. Thanks.
Okay, good evening, Council. I am just going to go through the staff report that you received basically, but I just thought it would be more efficient than me kind of read through a report just to put this together. So just some background. An agreement was signed with the community oven to really get the project off the ground in 2019. And it was substantially built by volunteer efforts and was followed up by capital support through our one-time capital program in the amount of 24,500 in 2021. And that really completed the project, so to speak. The oven has really been a partner in offering inclusive programming, and they've really done an impressive job of activating the space. The existing agreement with the oven, we do acknowledge this in the report, does need to be updated. Nick and I have been meeting with the oven folks as part of renewing the strategic partnership program this fall. So I think the timing is good. However, an opportunity has come to us that is time sensitive, and we needed to bring that to council this evening. So everyone's familiar with the location. We're really just talking about the small green space here at Roby Tufts Park. And I thought this was a fitting image of just the space needs that the oven has. So this is them sort of piling all their stuff within. And if you've sort of watched them operate, they're here and there in the park, accessing water and getting some shelter under the chimney. And it's been hugely successful, but I think the opportunity to talk about expansion and space is overdue. So we've outlined some of those reasons, but I think the main piece here is I think they've been successful in bringing people to our public space, which is really a key metric from my perspective and why we're providing these public spaces in the first place. So just to get into the opportunity with the shipping containers, you can see images of them. So Feed Nova Scotia is running a competition for two really attached. It's a sort of a single unit, but there's two separate containers that could be moved, including a deck and a stair access. So this is literally the opportunity in front of you. And the oven feels that these could meet expansion needs by providing the list of things here that I won't read back to you, but this is all outlined in a bit more detail in the report. And I think it's important just to look at the criteria that Feed Nova Scotia is using. So I think from what I've gathered from this process, I can't imagine that the community oven here doesn't have a good chance when the primary criteria is around food security, food justice, food sovereignty. So really to keep working on this at the staff level, we really need some level of staff direction, and the timing of the competition is such that we had to bring this to this meeting.
So what we've done is some preliminary analysis looking really at just the basic geometry of two secans and where they could potentially go there. We've met with the oven. I've been on site. Some other staff have been on site. This is really just an outline of the two secans that I'm showing here. And from the oven's perspective, the expansion of the operation needs to be really close to the oven. And so these are a few different options. You could move these around slightly as well, whether it's to the north or south, east or west, but these are the general areas that I think are viable, that could work on site. So the trade-off in some ways, given the space, is we could take some green space from the interior of the park, or we could reduce the parking needs in that general area, or the parking stalls in that area. We go into a little bit more detail in the report, but it really does come down to that in essence. We did do some public consultation. We did a workshop at the oven. I just want to highlight that a little bit here. And really the takeaway from that was that there was more public space desired, I think, at that time as well. Although that was a few years ago, they were up against it from space and the number of people that were gathering in the space. So some of you were at that workshop, maybe want to speak more to it, but that was really the takeaway, is we should, as part of our parks plan, look to invest a bit more in people space down here in front of our library. So this is just showing the impact brief, and maybe there's some questions that want to be directed toward Duncan. This was in the package as well, but I just wanted to provide an overview, and this is a lengthy motion, but the motion is here as well if it wants to be read. So thank you.
Thank you, Director Lake. Are there questions from council to either Director Lake or to Duncan Abada? Councilor Madeira-Voss.
Thank you, Mayor Don. Thank you for your presentation. This is quite, so you're looking at 40 square feet of additional space? Because it's 2 times 2 of those. Okay. A little bit more of that. And then this space above. And so right now you're looking at putting them possibly on the, I'm just looking at that parking spot that is on Elm.
Front. No.
Front. Okay,
Elm is just this side.
right. That's Elm over there.
That's front.
That's front.
Elm
So
is
I'm just trying
down
to
below. So the
Elm
street on the
front.
right-hand side is front.
right,
and
okay,
down
that
below
helps.
is Elm.
Yeah, just to see the other,
Yeah.
okay.
That's good.
So it's part of that larger parking lot, because it's just, I was thrown by the lack of other cars.
We had shown these, basically this section right here.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what to think.
Councilor Palmer?
So you go to put that on, your plan is to back it off so that the edge would be, the western edge of it would be equal to the outside edge of the parking lot. Is that what you're thinking?
That's what I've thought in the preliminary look I've done. I mean, I think the basic footprint fits in 3 parking stalls. I don't think it would impact much more. I think during events, there may be some leeway that would make sense around a few more parking stalls, just so they had some swing space around the building. But I think Alex and I would want to do a bit more work on some of the more practicalities, especially around servicing and pulling this in. But I think certainly from my perspective, it was really important to have a council discussion on this before we went any further.
And this doesn't replace the community fridge or locker that we talked about before. This is not in conjunction with that. This is a different thing altogether.
Council. Very good.
Oh,
Councillor
sorry.
Ingham?
Yeah, sorry. I did go down and meet Duncan on Saturday to get a better visual. And I think we talked that the height of the containers would be similar to the height of the existing building. Is that correct? And we are not deciding on the location tonight, correct? We are just deciding if this is something that council wishes to do.
Yeah, I think if there was a location that was absolutely not palatable to council, then I would like to hear that. If in terms of if you didn't want it in the parking lot or you didn't want it in the green space, then we could work towards one option. But I think our preference would be to have a few different options that we can work with them on, so we can site it in the most practical way, working with our parks crew and engineering.
I mean, I did see that the 3 parking spaces, it doesn't seem to be, you know, that much of a space. And then given the size of them and maybe where you'd have to locate them, and then there is a tree quite close to there. I'm not keen on taking up parking space, or I'm not keen on taking up green space. If we can do that, I know it's 3, but I also would want to know how, if you put those containers there in the parking, how much space would you have for the other cars that are opposite there to get out? Is that enough room for them to sort of turn around to? But my preference would be not to take up so much green space there, if we can.
Councillor Madeira Voss?
I would agree. I would not want to see any green space lost because I don't think it's a huge amount of green space to begin with. And when we have events, that space is quite full. I guess I'm wondering, this question of storage, additional, I know it's clear that it's needed. I'm not questioning that, but this opportunity came up because of Feeds Nova Scotia, correct? So if this hadn't come up, what would you have wanted for storage? Like, what are some other options for storage if this isn't because we're looking at this because there was an opportunity that was presented. But I think a separate issue for me is the fact that you need storage. And I would want to know, is this the ideal opportunity for storage? Or would we want to look at something else somewhere another format? Yeah.
Sure. Can everyone hear me? Is
Mhm.
it going through? So it's storage and it's a prep kitchen. We were actually already quoting out what it would look like for shipping container, kitchen, prep kitchen and storage space in January. So this opportunity was great and it just arrived, but we've been looking at it for a long time. And really the proximity to the building is more about the food prep, being able to have volunteers do food prep, be able to have more staff and volunteers do dishwashing down there. At the moment, we're carting wagons of dish loads to like the farmer's market and carrying the back. And that's just not feasible at the scale that we're gathering with community.
So it would also involve doing some plumbing, I'm presuming. And so in addition to having these 2 units there, we're going to have to look at plumbing and some infrastructure stuff that would have to be put in place as well. And how is that going to be covered, funded?
Alex included a cost, and we would need, this is again on the location, how we would bring that in there, whether we would use our equipment or whether we would have a contractor come in. So these are some of the details that need to really get ironed out. Again, I don't think that's the, given our crews do that a lot, and are really familiar with our services, that was kind of the in-kind side of this, unless we have a contractor come in.
So you're looking at the town providing that as an in-kind service to the.
Yeah.
Councillor McKay?
I too was down and had a chat with Duncan and just talking about the possibilities with these sea cans. I'm curious about the usability if you put it in the parking spots. We had chats about bands being on top and or people playing music or just something like, and it feels slightly disjointed from the park if it's over to that way. You know, if parents and children or whatever were up top, that tree and that building completely make it a separate, almost like a separate entity on that side, where not that I want to, I actually don't want to lose either green space or parking spaces, but obviously there's a choice. And I just wondered how disjointed that would be from the rest of the park, given the building and that tree. And clearly neither one of those are moving. Just from a usability standpoint, and that connectedness and everybody being together. And I know that's one of your massive mandates is that connectivity. So that would be my only comment on location is ensuring that safety and the connectivity is there.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. I'd like to throw something speculative into the discussion. We didn't get to hear the talk that the lovely woman from Birds, Nova Scotia wanted to present regarding the chimney. The chimney has not been used by chimney swifts for several years. It is not, she believes, in good shape. That is a space that we maybe should be factoring in. I don't know. I'm not no expert there. But if the chimney swifts have moved up to U-Haul, yes, it would be nice if they were still there. It would be a tourist attraction. But should we be overall practical about this? I don't know.
Councillor Madeira Voss. No?
My question.
Oh, okay. Councillor McKay.
Just following up to Councillor Elliott or Deputy Mayor Elliott, I'm not sure what that means. Are you asking to move the cans in a different direction or not get can? I'm not sure what your speculation was.
Well, my speculation is that maybe we have a discussion around removing the chimney.
Oh, just for more green space in general, nothing to do with the cans.
Well, that is where the dishes are done right now, is over there. So that's where the sink is. That's where some of the storage is already for firewood. I just thought it's a more fulsome topic if we look at it that way.
I think we could follow up with the folks that were going to give the presentation and get a bit more definitive. But I mean, that I don't think that's a bad idea either. If that can create an
Yeah.
opportunity for us, then
Great.
I mean, more opportunity for this, the better. So I can certainly follow up on that.
Councillor Madeira Voss.
So for those of you who are good at measuring, we're looking at 40 square feet relative to this room. What does that mean? Ian,
Parking spots?
help me out.
What is wide is this room in a boat where that door is?
It's a large footprint.
It's almost as big as this room.
Almost.
Take away the staff
Wouldn't be
area.
as big as this. You gotta convert dumping.
So it's a big storage space, but also a big space above, like for whatever it is that wants to. So I kind of like what Councillor Deputy Mayor Elliott is suggesting, because if that space is not being used as it was intended to, which is to accommodate the Swifts, that footprint might very well fit what we're looking at, and then it wouldn't disturb parking and it wouldn't disturb any of the green space. So I think that would be in my mind, that would be preferable.
I think Councillor Ingham and then the Deputy Mayor.
I don't mind that idea. But my concern, I just wanted to ask Duncan, would it be better? I mean, because you said you're lugging dishes, would it be better if those containers were closer together than farther apart? And then we could use where the chimney is for more green space. Do you know what I mean? Like there's a trade-off. That's massive amount of green space that comes down, but then the sea cans are closer to where you are so that you have more ability to do your prep work and everything. So you're not lugging. So because what you're going to be doing is lugging things back and forth in front of people that are out there eating. So I'm asking you, would it be better to be closer?
Yes, marginally. My first concern actually with that though was of the chimney swift space in general was covered space for sitting. I wouldn't want to take away covered space for sitting, given how many people use the park. So that would be my concern with that. Yeah, not so much. It's certainly better closer for sure.
But we could still turn that into semi-green space underneath though, or something, couldn't we? Like, just because it's covered doesn't mean it's not green space. It doesn't mean we can't do something that would be nice under there. So you'd have the separation of the food and then the green space over there. So it wouldn't be all, all over the place. That's all.
Councillor Butler, you haven't had a chance to speak, so
Okay.
do you want to go first and then the deputy mayor?
I value the idea. I know that storage space is tough. It seems very big for those parking spaces. I think of when I have to cross the street over to L'Arche. And if there's a very small car at the crosswalk, I have to go out in traffic to look around for cars coming, that if there's a shipping container there, trying to look around that corner for folks coming down Front Street, it just seems like it will impede a bit of a sight line for that area. With the size, my first question is, will some of it actually be on the lawn and some of it into the parking spaces, or will it just take up the spots in the parking space? That's my first question. My second question is, can you sort of walk us through a bit of the process of how this came to us tonight? Look, reading it, it seems like a lot of work had to go in, and this was actually, the deadline to submit was in August 23rd. It reads to me like it would have been like you would have known August 23rd that it says shortlisted, so select it, and then it would have to be, I guess, approved by us, but I just wanted to know more about the timeline. It just seemed very, here it is.
I had sent a note around to council that they were submitting in the application, and then we were going to wait to see if they got shortlisted, and then they did. And so the timing for committee of the whole, that's ideally in my mind when this would have come, to be honest, but we just didn't get there. And I think in some ways, I'm not sure it would have been that different. I will also say, like, I'm trying to just put those boxes on there for scale. So you could move those around really wherever you want. You could move those to 3 other parking spots to the north of the parking lot, if that made sense. I think the trade-off is really, do we want to put it in the park, or do we want to try to put it adjacent to the park? Because I think that tree is a really key consideration. It is a really nice large tree right next to the oven that should stay there. So anywhere along that. But at the same time, it needs to be really close to the oven. So we're somewhat limited. And so I think those are pretty realistic in standing down there. And I had a measuring tape and sort of made sure that it was approximate. Could it go into the green space from the parking lot? Absolutely. We could cut that back a little bit. But I think today really is sort of directional. Do we want to move forward supporting their application? And then there may be another piece that comes to the new council, because I think this may play out with some detail that we need to bring in, and maybe get a different type of approval, whether it's for some type of budget or other decision that emerges as we're putting it there.
Mr. Butler, did that answer all your questions?
It did. I did have a third question about cost, like annual costs to the town, or cost, like in this application, it says Feed Nova Scotia may be able to support moving costs of up to $4,000. The wording is a little off. There was really nothing other than the 10 to 12,000 for water hookup, was it? Like, will there be an annual cost to the town, or will there be a budgeted item every year for maintenance or what? There was no, I didn't see enough.
Our current agreement basically has the oven as the primary maintainer of the building, so to speak. And we, in the agreement, have Roby Tufts Park. However, the two things do come together. And so there's some overlap when we're actually operating in the space and there's events happening. This is what I mean about additional decisions. There may be something budgetary, whether it's prepping the park or otherwise, that comes into the next budget cycle, because this may not be operational until the spring anyway. So it may play it very nicely into the budget process as well.
Deputy Mayor and then Councillor Palmer.
I didn't want to indicate that I was in favor of absolutely taking the chimney down. The feeling I got from the Birds Nova Scotia people is that it needs repair and upkeep, and it's owned by the town. So we would have to be willing to do that. I agree with Duncan. There is seating every time there's a meal. There's seating under the canopy there on two sides anyway. So there's a lot in the mix. I don't feel like I can actually make a decision tonight on this.
Councillor Palmer.
Just want to point out, like we've said, water, I think everybody said here, but we'd also need water, sewer and electrical that we're looking at doing, right? It would be all three.
And Councillor Madeira Voss.
Well, I just think, given what Deputy Mayor Elliott has just said, you know, I wouldn't want to see us do this in isolation of the chimney, because there could be ways of improving or changing that space in a way that would better complement what we're trying to do here. You know, it could even be that, I don't know, storage versus kitchen. I mean, whether you'd even want to break that up somehow. But I think in principle, I would be supportive of the idea of getting these things. But I think, you know, given we need to keep as much green space as possible. We also need parking. I think there are a lot of elements that we need to look at. So I wouldn't feel comfortable supporting one specific one at this point. And I wouldn't want to be in a position where we make that decision and then find that we could do other things with the chimney space that better complements it and gives the whole area a better function and design. So I think we should keep that in mind, that maybe we just have a look at the whole thing and decide then.
Councillor McKay.
Thank you. Yes, lots of questions, and I had one just come up to me when what is the, I think we call it CTEP, although I can't remember what the acronym actually stands for. But for safety reasons, if you're going to your car or blocking visuals from any space in the park, is that a consideration? And then lighting outside of it, because I think that's a power pole, I think lights on it, if I recall correctly, but so just on that side, what kind of lighting and safety issues would blocking sightlines have, especially one going to a car? Just being a female, your head's always on a swivel going into a parking lot, but just considerations for that. But it sounds like there's a lot of questions, I think, that in theory, everyone seems to be in support of the idea. So does the oven, does it need to be, did I read it correctly that we must say we agree to do this for to be accepted? And if that's the case, we need to say, yes, we accept it, even though we don't have a location? Did I read that right, or did I read that wrong?
That's what I.
That's
how I
correct.
read.
Okay.
If I could just add to that, I mean, from my perspective, I was looking to get direction on whether we want to receive this, subject to answering these questions that you have. I mean, we need to do a much more detailed siting exercise. I've spent very little time doing this because this is just an opportunity that is falling out of the sky, basically. I think it can be done, and I think that all of these questions are very relevant, and we need to consider them all. So I think that's sort of the tension on the issue, is I think they need some direction to have a solid application to say, yes, we have generally support to put this in the vicinity of the oven. I would agree with everyone that we need to look at this much more.
So, Councillor Ingham and then Councillor Madeira Voss.
Yeah, so I had the same question as you did, Councillor McKay. So what is the time, like, so Duncan, you need to go back to them and say, yes, council said there is a spot for it, and when does that need to be in? And then if they say, okay, and then you're successful in your bid, when does it come here? Like, there are a lot of moving parts, but tonight we're just asked as council, do we want to receive this? Am I correct, Evan? I mean,
Yeah,
I
and-
know you don't, you said that you don't have the site chosen or anything like that, but what exactly do you need to go back to Feed Nova Scotia and say?
Just basically that we're approved in theory and we're working out the details.
Yeah.
Theo would like to.
Yeah, so I just want to refer to the draft motion, so that the intention of the motion, and as Director Lake had said, it's a little lengthy, but it's done so purposefully. That council would approve the expansion of the community oven operation at Roby Tufts Park through this opportunity, and that an updated agreement with the community oven would be brought forward. It doesn't say that, but at a future date, that would cover a lot of the details that you folks have spoken of tonight. Just as a takeaway, I think we can safely say that we would proceed with a holistic view of the use and composition of Roby Tufts Park for that entire space. So the use for, covered dining, the green space, the parking, all of those pieces need to be given consideration when defining the proximity to the community oven, the operations of the community oven. All of those pieces will have to be given specific consideration when figuring out exactly where the containers would go.
Dr. Madeira Voss?
So I'm fine with this motion. I think it's broad enough and it gives us the room that we need in terms of location. However, if you're not successful with this Feeds Nova Scotia opportunity, we still have an issue to address, which is one of storage and need. So in my mind, I kind of would like to see that, I don't know if we need to, but break it off into two. One is that we recognize the work of the community oven and its need to expand, and that we support its efforts to engage with Feeds Nova Scotia to take advantage of this opportunity. But I think regardless, if you're not successful, this issue needs to continue, and we need to look at another way of accommodating that expansion. So for me, they're two separate things where it's coming up to us right now because there's this opportunity. But if this opportunity didn't exist, we would still need to look at the expansion of the oven to accommodate the kitchen and all that stuff, correct? So we would look at other options. So I don't know if we need to separate that out, but in my mind, they're kind of two separate issues, but I don't.
We're working with them on that. And so we're in active discussions on trying to help them better meet their needs. This, as I say, just sort of landed here. And I think if this doesn't happen, we're going to be bringing something to council to update the agreement, to talk about setting expectations around use of the park and how, I mean, the chimney piece is important as well, because we are advertising a nature center that swifts are flying in and out of a chimney and they're not there. And so we sort of need to level up on a couple of fronts down there.
That sounds like a joke. I don't know, it sounds like, how do you, anyways. Are there any other questions from council? I just actually have a question. Given this is the last night of this council, and let's make the assumption that this motion goes through, and then you are successful or not successful, as Councillor Madeira Voss suggested, and the next council has a different view. What happens then? Is there a you get them and the next council says, we don't like this. We don't like this site. What do you do?
In terms of the site specifically, or just?
Well,
in
yeah, I'm just
general,
thinking
or-
this because this is the last night of this council, and my sense is that there may be approval for that. What if the next council has a different view? Right now, you don't know if you're going to get them. You'll put this application in with support, but you might not get it. But if you do get it, what if the next council feels differently? Is that an issue?
I might take this one, Mayor. So this council, as it's serving in office, can make this decision. If the agreement that's referenced here comes back to the council that's elected on October 19th, that council is free to make whatever decision it would make. So if it has other considerations or other decisions it would like to make, it's legally permitted to do that. So that all that this council is being asked to do is the motion that's on the slide, and no more than that.
Okay. Would you like to move the motion?
Sure, happy to. I would move the council approve the expansion of the community oven operation at Roby Tufts Park through the Feeds Nova Scotia opportunity if the community oven is successful in the competitive process they are engaged in, and that an updated agreement with the community oven be brought forward to cover this expansion and future operations at this site.
Thank you. And do we have a seconder? Councillor Ingham, is there any more discussion, comment?
Can I just make one comment?
Absolutely.
I was kind of astounded a week or two ago to read in the paper that the community oven in Dartmouth, which is in one of the parks there, had just opened for the first time since the pandemic. Our oven is really, really successful. I believe there's supposed to be one up in Bedeque. I don't know if it happened, but I remember hearing that at the FCM meeting. And like, we are quite unique, and that's nice to know.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Any other comments before we call a question? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That passes unanimously. That brings us to the last item. It's our March 31st financial statements. And I know Director Hopkins is on. I don't know, before we bring the motion, if you want to make any comments, Director.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Mayor Donovan. We met, the audit committee was presented with the financial statements on September the 13th, a week ago Friday. And one of our auditors, Victoria Ells, presented the audit committee report along with audited financial statements. We reviewed the RFD, we reviewed a few questions the audit committee had related to the statements. There were very, very minor adjustments or corrections as far as spelling in one of the disclosure notes to ensure that we had the proper term for councillors and deputy mayors in plural, excuse me. And I've updated the RFD. I hope everyone had an opportunity to review it. We have an unqualified opinion, which is what we were looking for, with the clean going forward position within the financial statements. If there's questions, I'm going to open up everyone to, or allow everyone to ask questions should they have them, or if they weren't able to review the statements, if they wanted a slightly more in-depth review. The audited financials are there as far as the consolidated, and the unaudited non-consolidated are there along with the audit committee report from Grant Thornton.
Thank you so much, Director. Are there any questions of council to Director Hopkins? Councillor Ingham.
Yeah. Hi, I was actually looking at, I guess, at the financial condition indicator table, and I did read below the 66.1 that are in the combined reserves has gone up substantially, and that is due to the fact that we have not completed projects. So what is your thinking on that number of percentage moving forward if we don't continue that trend?
Sorry, go ahead. My apologies.
No, if we just continue on that trend, it concerns me.
Can everyone hear me? My internet connection is saying it's unstable. I couldn't quite get.
But you're stable.
Oh, good. Yay. There were some capital projects that were carried forward. We reviewed them in the budget process, more than I think we had anticipated. Investment in capital was around $1 million, and we had planned for significantly more than that. So that's where you're going to get that increase from the 55 to the 66 percentile in your FCIs. Am I concerned about it? Of course. The monies are in reserves, and that's what's fluctuated that particular key indicator. I think we're in good position this particular year as far as the number of projects that we have undertaken and have already completed to date. And we'll be reviewing that in November when we have the Q1 and Q2 variance reports to council.
Thank you. Other questions of the director? Go ahead.
And I just had a follow up on, I guess, as we're heading into the election and people are asking questions about our taxes, and then we have the uncollected taxes increasing also as a trend. Just wanted to point that out. Is that number at 8.8 or 8.1 concerning?
The uncollected, let me just grab it here. Yeah, the trend we can't really ignore the trend. It's actually higher by 0.7 compared year over year from 2022 to 23, 2022, 23 to 23, 24. I believe that's more in line with as far as us getting the tax bills out on time. Jenny's actually sitting beside me, so I'm going to ask her the question as well, if you can entertain that. Since year end. Yeah. So at year end, at the year end financials, we had 12 accounts that had not been fully collected and paid. Now we're down to 5. So that trend would certainly, if we were to look at the FCI at this standpoint, it would have improved from the year end financial results.
Okay, thank you.
That have two or more years outstanding, yes.
Okay.
So the indicators just for anyone that has taxes that extend beyond the 24-month period.
24 months? Is that what you said?
2 years, yes.
And can I just make one more comment?
Of course.
I would say this was a bit heavy this time of year as we're so busy. So I tried to get my brain around reading all of it, and I read it a few times. It's a bit later than we normally get it. I guess that's why it was a bit of a surprise. Do we usually get it? Glenn, when do we usually expect to get these and approve them?
This was a little bit later. We had some, and Beth can speak to this better than I can, but we had some challenges with getting the statements from the auditors, which did come just in the last couple of weeks. But typically we would try to have this earlier than this point. Beth, do you want to elaborate on that?
Initially, the plan was to present in July, and we had some issues. The auditors helped create the statements as well. Unfortunately, with the departure of my predecessor, Director McLean, there wasn't a lot of linkage from the financial statements that we had on file. So they had to be created, and it took a lot longer. We had some issues with reconciling the funds in June and July with the auditors. Hence, we needed a little bit of additional time, or they needed added time to be able to balance the statements, which we worked with them and we were able to do. I think they had a larger volume of work than they would normally have expected. We were getting testing, random samples and testing up until the early part of September, which is very unusual. Normally, you would have your audit completed within a 6-week period from time of initiation, so that you don't have any additional circumstances that you would have to report. The longer that your audit is not completed, and they have to continue the opinion until the audit is presented and approved by council, it also opens up for us to have to report any extenuating circumstances or unusual instances that may have happened, which fortunately nothing has to date. But it certainly was a lot later than anticipated. The statements going at 11 a.m. the day before the audit committee. So it was quite a bit of a rush to get this completed, but it certainly wasn't because they weren't working on them. I think we ran into a bit of a more arduous process than initially anticipated, not having the previous reports available to us with linkages and easy access to import data and calculate the consolidated statements. That's a long-winded answer. It took us a lot longer than we expected.
CAO?
And if I can as well, Mayor, speaking with my colleagues from around the province, the timely audited statements is a fairly common topic of conversation lately, of getting timely audited statements from audit firms right across the province. So it's not a uniquely Wolfville challenge. It seems to be a challenge for many municipalities right now.
Yeah, we spoke to we sat with Yarmouth today, and Jenny sat with and spoke with CBRM, and neither of those have their year-end audited financial statements presented to council as of yet.
Go ahead, Councillor.
And so just the last one, I just wanted to note that we don't often see, I know it goes to audit first, we don't often see the council expenses. And I just wanted to thank Councillor McKay, because when we traveled to the Town and Gown, myself and a couple others, we did not have an app. And so she was putting in all our expense claims on that. So it could be a bit skewed on that. And I do want to thank her for that, because none of us had the technology. I'm looking over at Caden too. And yeah, so if we didn't have her, we probably wouldn't have eaten. So thank you.
I thought you meant you didn't have appetizers with your meal.
Maybe.
They seem to be everywhere.
Okay. Councillor McKay, do you have a
Thank you.
comment?
Yeah,
Question? Yeah, fine.
just where those questions came up from Councillor Ingham, I agree, some of them, I can't get into my computer again, but wondering if it is prudent for the next council to have these as one of their first documents presented to them as part of their orientation, as they will go into budget almost immediately, and having those trends and those numbers to start of what they had last year to what's happening this year might be a good jumping off point.
Absolutely. Yeah. And financial and entrenchment in municipal finance will be one of the key pieces of orientation. And this would, unless Beth's got a different idea, I think this is probably where we would do the jumping off point.
Absolutely. Plus I mentioned earlier, in November, we'll be doing Q1 and Q2 variance reporting as well. So they'll have kind of a double barrel experience as far as reviewing what we've gone through in the current fiscal, in addition to have comparables from year over year and to budget. And then stepping in later within the next month after they've been, the new council has been established, stepping into budget, as you mentioned. They're all going to want to be accountants.
Okay, Councillor Butler.
I can move it? I can move it? All right, perfect. I move that council approve the 2023-24 consolidated and non-consolidated financial statements for the year ended March 31st, 2024, as attached to RFD 0382024.
Thank you, Councillor Butler, and Councillor Madeira Voss will second that. Are there any other questions or comments? Seeing none? Oh, sorry.
Sorry, just very
Yeah.
briefly, Mayor, I just wanted, this is, as has been alluded to, this was a significant body of work and a bit of a pivot point in moving some of our financial systems and financial files forward. So I really want to thank Beth and Jenny and the rest of the finance staff, because this was an enormous body of work. So thank you folks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. We second that, and all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That is passed. There being no other business in front of this council, could I have a motion to adjourn, please? So moved, Councillor Madeira Voss. Thank you. We are adjourned.